In this video, I will go over and explain all the 3 different playstyles in the Strongest Battlegrounds so that you can understand each and have a choice by the end. Let's get into it. First, and definitely most hated, we got the passive players. Their playstyle consists of waiting for their opponent to attack while trying to provoke their opponent by, as example, jumping around or acting like they will dash into them just to turn around and bait their opponent. They are also often referred to as spammer or runner, and that has its good reasons. Passive players are known for mostly using Cyborg or Sonic, which are also called spam or no-skill characters, mainly because of the people using these characters being passive players. Using these characters, they are seen backing up and charging their blitz shot with Genos, or side dashing at their opponent and then turning around to ignition burst them. If we talk about Sonic, passive players can always be seen backing up in order to throw their shuriken or try catching their opponent off guard with a flash strike or whirlwind kick. However, do not get this confused. Passive players still exist with every character, as example Saitama, where they might try to bait you by once again, doing things like acting they are about to side dash, but then just waiting for their opponent to come at them. Now, in my opinion, passive is probably the best kind of playstyle for new players, as it doesn't involve trying to predict any of your opponent's move in close combat, because you keep distancing yourself from them. However, it is also the worst if you are trying to get better the fastest way. You don't really learn anything when you just back off like a scared cat all the time, other than how to hold down your block button so you can then fight back at your opponent, and most high-skilled players will see through that and beat you anyways, especially if they have a bit of patience and will chill out instead of trying to run after you all the time. With that being said, I think that being a passive player is the worst choice out of all the 3 main playstyles there is, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody other than really new players. Next, we got the aggressive players. Their playstyle consists of consistently attacking and rushing their opponent in order to stress them out or catch them off guard. They do this by closing the distance between themselves and their opponent by, as example side, dashing into their direction or just running at them, while still making sure they won't get dashed at. They then sometimes side dash at their opponents in order to catch them, but what is way more usual is a normal front dash, but then twisting it at the very last second. Aggressive players usually play characters like Saitama or Garou because their movesets pretty much exist out of melee attacks only, so the only way to actually kill the opponent is to get close to them. Aggressive players who use Garou can also be seen trying to side dash into their opponent and then instantly using flowing water, as it is a block-breaking skill, and most opponents will always try blocking whenever someone dashes near them, which is why that tactic works so well. However, your opponent will most likely see that and can easily adapt, because all they need to do is just instantly side dash away from you instead of trying to block. Playing aggressively is also a great opportunity to practice reading your opponent's defense habits, also helping you to understand how you can break through your opponent's defense in the first place. It also assists in timing attacks in order to catch your opponent off guard, as example doing the flowing water tactic once you start understanding when your opponent kind of blocks instead of dashing away. This all leads to you learning to improve fighting defensive people, which will assist you in your future fights against these kind of players. Lastly, playing aggressively in duels is also a really good way to finish your match fast, if you are, as example, trying to gather a higher rank. On the other side, playing aggressively is by far the most risky out of all the 3 big playstyles, because it is always way easier to defend against someone coming straight at you instead of when you both are attacking each other. The aggressive playstyle is also by far the most predictable out of them, because your opponent will know that you will always try getting close to them or catching them with one of your attacks. And once your opponent understands that you are always doing the same, they will know where and when to block or dash away, putting you in a really dangerous situation. With that being said, I think that if you are going to play aggressive, you will need to adapt in the middle of combat so your opponents won't catch on to what you are doing. This can be done by, as example, randomizing the directions you dash and side dash from, but also by just waiting a bit longer or shorter between each dashes, so it will be much harder for your opponent to predict. I do think that the aggressive playstyle can be really rewarding if played correctly, so I will say it's the second best out of all the three styles. Last, but definitely not least, we've got the counter playstyle. This style is all about predicting your opponent's moves and hitting back with a well-timed counterattack. Unlike passive players who mainly try to avoid fights or spam long-range attacks, counter players keep a steady distance from their opponent, trying to bait them into messing up or waiting for them to make a mistake out of panic or frustration. Counter players don't always back off after landing a counterattack. Sometimes they'll keep up the pressure if they feel their opponent is off guard, which makes them probably the hardest to predict out of all three playstyles. When facing aggressive opponents up close, they often use counter moves like Garu's Flowing Water or Atomic Samurai's Pinpoint Cut. These moves are super effective because they can punish opponents hard. Flowing Water, for example, breaks blocks, and Pinpoint Cut is fast enough to catch mistakes instantly. Counter players usually pick characters like Garu or Atomic Samurai because these characters have great counterattacks and movesets that let them capitalize on their opponent's errors. The only real threat to a counter player is another counter player, since both will be trying to outsmart and outreact each other. Against passive players, it's usually not too tough. You can close the distance and use their mistakes against them when they think they have the upper hand. All in all, the counter play style is the most rewarding if you master it. Even though it shares some similarities with the passive play style, counter players focus more on exploiting their opponent's mistakes both from a distance and up close. Sure, there's a risk of misreading your opponent, but if you pull off a successful counterattack, it can really turn match into your favor. In summary, each play style, passive, aggressive, and counter, has its unique strengths. Passive playstyles are great for beginners, focusing on distance and survival, but can slow improvement. Aggressive playstyles are effective for putting pressure on opponents and finishing matches quickly, but come with higher risks and predictability. The counter playstyle, however, offers the best balance of strategy and adaptability. It excels by exploiting mistakes and reacting dynamically, making it the most versatile and rewarding for skilled players. Overall, mastering the counter playstyle can provide significant advantages. Understanding these styles helps you choose the best approach for your gameplay. I hope this video helped you find your playstyle. By the way, guess mine in the comments. Let's see who gets it right.